Okay, good afternoon again, everyone. Just a couple quick reminders before we get started. If you would like to ask a question, please feel free to type that in the question box or raise your hand and I can unmute you after the webinar and you can ask your question out loud, whatever you're most comfortable with. So I had at least one person respond that the mic check went okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is a heavy rainfall flood potential briefing for as of 3 o'clock this afternoon. Next briefing, most likely sometime tomorrow morning, and again, another possible webinar in the afternoon, depending how things evolve. And this information is kind of time sensitive, so forecast can and does change, so don't rely too heavily on this after early tomorrow morning. So where are we at right now? So even though we've kind of been a little bit lucky today in terms of the heavier rainfall rates staying kind of offshore, all those ingredients are still there for additional round or two of heavy rainfall across much of the RGV and deep South Texas, probably favoring the areas along and east of I-69C and US 281. But what we still have this slow moving upper level disturbance over South Texas. It's actually more up in this area. What you see here is another circulation we've seen develop today and move up from the south. But that's going to pump that copious tropical moisture across the RGV probably through Thursday night, maybe into early Friday morning. And even then, it'll be a little bit slow to completely dissipate. So at this time, on top of what's already fallen, which we'll talk about in just a second, we could see an additional 1 to 4 inches of rainfall, again, kind of favoring the eastern and southern portions of the area, Cameron and Willacy counties, with some isolated 6-inch totals of additional rainfall still possible. For the moment, the favored timing is through early evening. You can see we still got some moderate to occasionally heavy rain showers, mainly in Cameron, Willacy, drifting up into Kennedy counties at this time, and most of the heavier rain, this reds you here see on the latest radar loop, have stayed offshore for the moment, but that's been one kind of limiting factor on the confidence is exactly where those heaviest bands will set up, but certainly no reason they couldn't redevelop a little further inland later. The latest, computer model guidance is suggesting a bit of a lull this evening, kind of like we saw last night. But then again, some potential for redevelopment again between about midnight tonight and through noon on Thursday. And again, not a little tough to pin down whether this big precip shield, especially the next round, will remain offshore. So that part remains to be seen. So what have we seen so far? And again, these totals are through 7 a.m. this morning. A little bit more has fallen, but in most cases, the additional rainfall today has been on the order of an inch or less. So the biggest swath has been from here around Port Mansfield, back through Raymondville and towards Santa Rosa, Sebastian area, and on back through the western part of the McAllen Metro into Mission. This map on the left is mostly based on radar estimates, but you can see a pretty wide swath of 5+ inches in that area I just pointed out, with kind of 2 to 5 inches elsewhere. We did get some pretty impressive actual measured rainfall totals as well overnight. At the Rio Grande National Wildlife Refuge, over 8 inches as of early this morning. About 6 to 7 inches in Santa Rosa and Mission. In Cameron County, the west side of Harlingen was one of the bigger spots as well. I'm sorry, the Santa Rosa should be under Cameron County, my mistake there. One report from Santa Rosa of 6 inches from our cooperative observer, again up to 7 inches on the west side of Harlingen, and at the Harlingen airport about 3.45 inches, so a pretty good gradient across the city there. The highest total we saw so far was near Port Mansfield with 8.1 inches as of this morning, and they picked up a little bit more again this afternoon. 1 to 3 inch totals across the ranch lands of Jim Hogg County around Hebronville as well as of early this morning. So what's all that done? It's kind of primed the soils for additional flooding. Fortunately, we haven't seen a lot of change in the reported flooded roads from the drivetexas.org site. I've been checking this periodically through the day, and not a lot has changed. Probably the longest stretch of road with water on it is FM 1425 from around Mercedes up toward Santa Rosa. I believe all these roads are open, but there is some water on the roadways, and earlier at least there were a couple of exits closed on the freeway. And we've also had some reporting of residential street flooding and closures still going on in portions of Willacy County, over here in Mission, and likely among a few others. So I apologize, we made a little change since this graphic was inserted in the briefing, but the flash flood watch was just recently extended to go through 7 a.m. Friday morning instead of 7 p.m. Thursday. Obviously, the soils are saturated from yesterday and last night's rains. And what all that means is that in many areas, as little as an inch in some cases of additional rainfall could cause renewed flooding. Fortunately, we have not had to issue any flash flood warnings yet today, though we have had several flood advisories, a little bit less severe flooding occurring. But those rainfall rates, which we always stress is kind of the key, have generally stayed in that ½ inch to 1 inch per hour range, at least over land. The heavier stuff has been out over the Gulf, and that's kind of worked to our favor here. So what's still to come? This graphic here on the left shows the expected additional rainfall through early Friday morning, through about 7 a.m. Friday morning, the 9th. And as you can see, it's kind of focused along the coast and in eastern Cameron County, where another 3 to 4 inches wide. This is kind of a widespread aerial average as possible, and then decreasing a bit as you go inland. So again, locally higher amounts up to 6 inches could fall in addition to what's already come down. That could bring some places for storm total accumulations up to 10 to 12 inches since Monday. And again, we always stress that the flooding is determined by the rainfall rate, the total amount, and how the drainage is in that particular area. So again, our areas of kind of greatest concern we're watching is again in that swath from Port Mansfield back through Santa Rosa, Sebastian, on through Mercedes, Weslaco, and Donna, who had over 6 inches of rain yesterday afternoon. And in some respects, West Harlingen, LaFeria, Raymondville areas, and in the western part of kind of the McAllen Metro, if that rainfall can develop further inland, that's still a little bit uncertain. So this was an interesting day. This is the first time I can remember that the Weather Prediction Center of the National Weather Service has issued a high risk of flash flooding, basically, for a portion of our area. It's highlighted here in this light purple, this strip along the coast. And these high risk areas are only issued a handful of times each year on a national basis. So this was a little bit of a surprise, but again, like I said, the ingredients were there. So it was hard to argue against that. A little further north up toward Corpus Christi, I know there was a flash flood emergency in Rockport, but like I said, we've been pretty fortunate so far today. As we look ahead to Thursday, there's still a slight risk of flash flooding. Again, mainly kind of along and east of Highway 281, and over the rest of the area, a more marginal or spottier risk. And as we head toward Friday, there's a little more uncertainty. The grounds will certainly be wet, but the precipitation should start to taper off some as we get into daytime on Friday, but still a marginal risk of additional flash flooding. So another update is that our West Gulf River Forecast Center has started issuing forecasts for the Rio Grande, both for San Benito and at Lower Brownsville. And this is primarily driven by local runoff. There haven't been a lot of changes in the releases from the reservoirs on the Mexican side of the border, to our knowledge. But the initial forecast indicating the flood wave cresting at San Benito sometime midday Friday, and then a day or so later at Brownsville. Both are forecast currently to get into what they call the action stage, but stay a little bit below minor flood stage. So definitely stay tuned for updates there. So what are the takeaways? Again, those known flood-prone areas are at the highest risk. The main areas of concern are in that swath from Port Mansfield through Santa Rosa, back down toward Donna and Mercedes. So what all adds up to give you that 3+ feet of water depth that can cause the most problems? That's where you've got those heaviest rainfall rates, 2+ inches per hour, which is still certainly possible in this deep tropical air mass we're seeing. When that sets up over known poor drainage locations. And of course, the longer and stronger the rainfall, the higher the water depth could become. And the flash flood potential gradually decreasing by Friday. It probably peaked, earlier today. But hopefully that we've kind of hit the crest and we'll be gradually, I want to stress that, decreasing through Friday. So again, confidence in this forecast. I didn't really change this arrow from what Barry briefed everyone yesterday. There's still what we call, the local or the mesoscale, how things set up. It's a little hard to pin all that down. Medium to high confidence that we'll see at least a few areas of additional localized flooding. Again, most likely east of I-69C and Highway 281. Confidence just medium though on what kind of rainfall rates will actually be realized, whether we'll, get above that 2 inches per hour rate. It's still certainly possible, and I don't want to rule that out by any means because the ingredients are still there. And we will provide an update tomorrow, certainly by email, another possibly by webinar in the afternoon, depending how things evolve over the next 12 to 24 hours or so. And with that, I'd be glad to, take any questions. Again, you can type them into the chat box or raise your hand and I can unmute you if you'd like to ask a question out loud. So thanks for your attention today. And I had one question asking about my name. Apologize if I didn't mention that at the beginning. My name is Joshua Schrader. I am the Science and Operations Officer here at the Weather Service in Brownsville. I know a lot of you all are used to hearing from Barry Goldsmith, who's actually taking some vacation this week. So I had see another question. Ricardo Salinas mentioned in Lyford, 12 inches of rainfall from Sunday afternoon through midday today. That's certainly believe that one. Stephen Bird asked the question, what is the future forecast for this storm for the weekend? Will it move shore or up the coast? So some of those heavier rain bands in the near term are projected to kind of move on up the coast. However, that the causative feature, that upper level low, will be kind of just drifting in place through about Friday. And then eventually it kind of weakens and fills in, as we say, and sort of dissipates and stops concentrating all that moisture overhead. And that's why we're going to see that, gradual decrease in precipitation chances after tomorrow, Friday, and through the weekend. It won't totally go away. And with the wet grounds, a quick thunderstorm dropping 1.5 inches, 2 inches of rain could still cause some localized issues even over the weekend, but certainly less widespread. So thank you for the questions coming in. One from Mr. Alfredo Garza for how does it look for the Starr County area? Let me step back up. Doesn't look quite as bad out in Starr County. Generally speaking, looking for maybe another 1.5 to 2 inches of rain total over the next couple days. If we can get thunderstorms going, though, I still couldn't rule out a couple spots getting up to 4 inches or so by this time Friday. And again, I want to stress the whole area is under that flash flood watch. The risk for significant flash flooding a little bit lower out there, but still certainly elevated. It's in what we call the slight risk category. So hopefully that answers your question, Mr. Garza. And I think I'm caught up on the questions from the chat box, but if certainly can wait a few minutes here if anybody has anything else or wishes to raise their hand and ask out loud? Don't. Oh, I do see one. Let me see. I do see one raised hand. Oh. Okay, nope, not seeing it anymore. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions come in or hands raised here in the webinar. So with that, we will wrap this up. I've sent out the slides to our distribution list, and we'll go ahead and pass along the recording of this webinar as well. Once that's available, I'll send it out to everybody. So everyone, please stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.